Hi guys, this is Tablet-News.com and I'm here with the ASUS ZenPad S 8.0 tablet that I'm going to review over the following minutes. This model that we're testing right here is the Z580CA version of the 8-inch tablet. It's an elegant 8-inch tablet that was unveiled at Computex 2015 in this summer. It's a rival for the Nokia N1, the iPad mini 4 and the Galaxy Tab S2 models. You can find it in USA at $159 in the 2GB of RAM version or $299 for the 4GB RAM version that we're testing right here. The product comes in black or white. It measures 6.6mm in thickness, so it's quite slim. However, it's thicker than the iPad mini 4 that measures 6.1mm, but slimmer than the Nokia N1 that measures 6.9mm. In the meantime, it's certainly a bit thicker than the Samsung Galaxy Tab S2 8.0 that measures 5.6mm in thickness. This model weighs 298 grams, which is 1 gram lighter than the iPad mini 4. It's also lighter than the Nokia N1 that weighs 318 grams and a bit heavier than the Galaxy Tab S2 8.0 at 265 grams. Apparently, ASUS has been inspired by the world of fashion, from what I've heard, clutch purses to design this slate. The back at first sight may seem to be made of brushed aluminum and faux leather in this area. However, when you tap it and put your hand on it, it doesn't feel as cold as regular metal. So this is basically a slab of plastic material made to look like aluminum, and these edges that you can see here glowing, those are actually metal, real metal that's been diamond cut according to ASUS. This tablet has quite big bezels for 2015, as you can see here, big screen bezels. However, it's very comfy and even easy to use with a single hand in spite of being quite wide. And when I say comfy, I mean that this rubber imitation extends to the sides as well and make for a good grip. Aside from that, once you tap on the edges, you'll feel that they're a bit predisposed to small dings because this area here is made of plastic and it may chip during time, or if you don't use the tablet properly and throw it in a school bag, for example. So feels a bit fragile but looks premium and looks high-end and comfy. At the front side we find two speakers, one here and one here, the front camera and also the sensors. Now at the back we find this format that reminds me of Sony's folded magazine tablets, but in a more compact version. We got a slightly protruding main camera and a crisscross pattern in this brush metal area imitation. Don't know if you can see it. Usually ASUS rely on a concentric pattern. Well, it's crisscross diagonal now. And here there was an Intel logo, but it's slightly smudged away. At the top we find the audio jack, while at the bottom there's the USB Type-C port and the microphone. And considering this alignment, this is certainly a landscape oriented tablet. The idea was that if you put the USB Type-C port in the center, it's strange when charging it and using it at the same time to have a wire sticking out like this, so that's why they put it here. Also microphone here, and the edges, as you can see, have been slightly rounded. At the left side you can find this slot here is the micro SD card slot being covered up with a lid. On the right side we have the volume buttons and the power button with pretty okay feedback. Overall, the ASUS ZenPad S 8.0 has a pretty elegant design, but keep in mind this is not a metal plate. It's plastic material looking like metal. This is a metal frame after all. The device feels a bit fragile, but it's comfy and good looking. Now as far as the hardware goes, the display you're seeing right here is on paper an 8-incher IPS LCD with a resolution of 2048 over 1536 pixels and Gorilla Glass 3 protection. However, we actually measured the screen and the real diagonal is closer to 7.85 inches, so ASUS rounded up to 8 inches. The processor inside, well, it's an Intel Atom Z3580 quad-core 64-bit clocked at 2.3 GHz. It's familiar because it was also present on the Nokia N1 tablet. The GPU is a PowerVR G6430 clocked at 533 MHz, and we're also getting here RAM of the dual channel 64-bit kind, in this case 4 GB of RAM LPDDR3. Now, as far as the storage is concerned, we're getting 16, 32 or 64 gigabytes here, as well as a micro SD card slot that offers up to 128 gigabytes of extra storage. There's also the other version of the tablet that has 2 gigabytes of RAM and the Z3580 processor. Also, aside from the regular storage, you're also getting 5 gigabytes of ASUS web storage in the cloud and an extra 100 gigabytes in the cloud via Google Drive for 2 years. Now, as far as the cameras are concerned, 5 megapixel at the front, 8 megapixel shooter at the back, and on the connectivity side we got Wi-Fi 802.11, ABGN AC, Bluetooth 4.1, Bluetooth Smart, Miracast, USB Type-C, GPS and GLONASS. Other features, well, there's these two speakers here at the front, there's a G sensor, E-compass, there's the light sensor, and finally the hall sensor. This tablet offers a battery, a 15.2 watt-hour lithium polymer battery that on paper should provide about 8 hours of video playback with a brightness at 100 nits. Well, in our test that involves HD video playback in a loop with Wi-Fi on and brightness at 200 lux, we achieved a result of 6 hours and 50 minutes, which is reasonable but below rivals with similar resolutions and diagonals. For example, the Nokia N1 scores 8 hours and 32 minutes, the Xiaomi Mi Pad 10 hours, the iPad mini Retina 10 hours and 8 minutes, and the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4 13 hours and 33 minutes. Still, we beat the model Chewy V8 that scored 5 hours and 58 minutes. We also did a PC Mark test, and in the PC Mark test of continuous usage simulation we scored 4 hours and 59 minutes. This one could have also been better, but at least we beat the brother of this model, the ASUS ZenPad 7.0 that scores 4 hours and 19 minutes. And we also beat the Chewy V8 that scores 3 hours and 29 minutes, plus the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4 with its surprising 4 hours and 43 minutes. We were below the Nokia N1 with its 7 hours, so keep in mind we reached almost 5 hours, while Nokia N1 7 hours of PC Mark testing, and the Xiaomi Mi Pad with its 6 hours and 28 minutes of continuous usage. Overall, the battery remains reasonable but not impressive. The charging also takes quite long, 3 hours and 24 minutes, once again quite a bit for this 8-inch tablet, or better said 7.8-inch tablet. It's also a duration of charging that surpasses the Nokia N1, that one charges harder. It takes 3 hours and 52 minutes for it to charge, and the iPad mini Retina also charges harder, 3 hours and 40 minutes. Still, there are tablets out there that are small and charge faster, like the Xiaomi Mi Pad, 2 hours and 30 minutes, or the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4 in 3 hours of charging. Also, the ASUS ZenPad 7.0, 2 hours and 30 minutes, while this one, 3 hours and 24 minutes. Obviously, we have power saving settings available here. You can find them under power management, and they're pretty straightforward. You tap power saver and you can see the 3 main options. There's ultra saving, optimized mode and customized mode. Okay, so optimized mode pretty much handles everything for itself, optimizes device performance and battery life, while ultra saving mode is able to limit your device's performance, some background data processes, email, messaging, Play Store, and other apps that need syncing. So that's what it does. And then there's the customized mode, which, just as the name says, allows you to tweak the experience, what percentage to turn it on at, how to reduce the brightness, and if you're going to allow certain apps to offer you push notifications or not. So very straightforward experience. There's the optimized mode here. You can turn it off if you want to, and you'll notice a slight change in brightness immediately. Okay, you also have a power consumption table showing you which batteries are used up by the applications the most, so you'll know which consume the most energy. Overall, the battery is a bit underwhelming, and I was expecting more from this tablet. Now, as far as the acoustics go, ASUS promises here DTS HD technology, Sonic Master technology, and we got dual front-facing speakers that should be able to offer you a very nifty premium sound. And apparently ASUS promised to offer 360-degree surround sound on headphones. Now let's go to the music app, which is right here. It's very minimalistic, simple and straightforward. If you've seen a Zen phone before or a tablet from ASUS over the past year, you'll know what to expect. So minimal and typical Zen UI, and here you can find the options like sleep timer, which pretty much speaks for itself, and then the settings with quite a few options available here. We got fine tune that offers you access to volume, bass and treble, also dialogue enhancement, which comes in handy for movies, and then another section called EQ with 5 channels to customize and tweak your acoustic experience. Okay, that's only one of the options you can play with here. You can also choose from the Audio Wizard equalizer or the stock Android equalizer if you have a preference in that area. You can also do a bit of streaming as shown by these options here. And now it's time for the actual acoustic experience. Okay, now some conclusions. As you just heard, the sound is pretty loud, clear and crisp. It has a pleasant vibe to it. It's not bad at all. I like the high notes, I like the good bass, and there is also the Audio Wizard thingy here. And let's say we're keeping the music running. You just saw there's a nifty visualizer here that just cooled off, and the Audio Wizard that can be turned on or off from here has the following option: movie, music, gaming and vocal. You know them already from previous ASUS tablets, but now the UI has changed. There's also a smart mode and advanced effects that take you to this area that we've already seen. There's also DTS feature here, feedback and help. So as I said before, the interface has changed and it looks quite nice, has a certain disco vibe to it. And it certainly amplifies the experience. Let's see what happens with it on or off. So quite a big difference in my book, as you just heard, quite a big difference with it on or off. We also did a decibel meter test, and while we were enthusiastic before, the actual test wasn't exactly very pleasing. We achieved 76.5 decibels at the back and 79.3 decibels at the front. Considering we always usually get around 80 decibels or more, this is supposed to be a letdown. However, in regular daily usage I found the volume to be satisfying. Anyway, the Nokia N1 scores 89.8 decibels, the Xiaomi Mi Pad 83.3 decibels, and the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4 84.5 decibels, so all of them beat us. However, we did surpass the all-new Viva H7 Extreme with its 74.3 decibels and the Chewy V8 with its 71.6 decibels. Once again, the decibel meter tells a story and our daily usage tells another story. I'm happy with the speakers, volumes and the quality. Now let's get to the screen. An 8-inch screen on paper, 7.85-inch screen in reality, LED backlit, IPS LCD panel, 2048 over 1536 pixels in resolution, Gorilla Glass 3 protection, and it has apparently an anti-fingerprint coating from ASUS, although I did leave quite a few fingerprints on it, full lamination and palm rejection, supposing you're going to use a stylus on it. It has a 4:3 aspect, and there is a 74% screen to body ratio here, although the bezels seem quite thick in my book. Now I'm going to list a quite impressive number of technologies that ASUS has included here. We got ASUS Visual Master that apparently offers some viewing experience enhancements. There's ASUS True to Life Tech, which also enhances the experience. It's basically an image processing from TV sets with accurate contrast and realistic images. That's what they're saying, at least on the paper. And other things worth mentioning here is that we have intelligent contrast with up to 200% wider contrast levels, increased sharpness optimization, true vivid technology that enhances clarity and brightness, touch response, thanks to the fact it has a 2-layer design, and by e-timing the screen has a 2-layer design instead of a 4-layer design, and finally ASUS blue light filter that reduces your eye fatigue. We continue with the specs listed on paper: 178-degree viewing angles and 20 millisecond touch response. I'm going to use the gallery as the video player. There's actually no other option here, and let's actually put the screen to the test. Here we go, our usual video sample. Not much fancy options here. I don't see any option for subtitles or other cool features like DTS. First things I noticed, the colors are a bit on the cold side. The screen is not exactly very bright. It doesn't behave well in sunlight. For example, if you have to read text in sunlight, forget about it. And it's got wide viewing angles, typical for an IPS. Good frame rate and a crisp image thanks to the high resolution. The pixels are of the pentile matrix kind. They're set up. You don't have to believe me. This is the microscope talking, and those are the pixels under the microscope pentile matrix. Okay, and then we move further. We proceed to the lux. Here we go. This is the lux meter, and our measurement is quite low. Nowadays standards show that you should get at least 350 lux or even 400 lux. We even scored below the ASUS ZenPad 7.0, which is a lower end tablet. That one scores 274 lux and we scored 257 lux. We were beaten by the Xiaomi Mi Pad with its 310 lux, by the Nokia N1 with its 355 lux, by the iPad Mini 2 with its 412 lux, and by the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4 with its 432 lux. But the worst defeat comes from the ASUS Nexus 7 2013 that had 500 lux, while we barely scored about half of that. So the display's brightness is quite underwhelming, as I mentioned here. We do have some special settings to play with for this screen. So in the display area we got brightness level and auto rotate screen. Okay, so let's fix that. Okay, this is the brightness level that can be set to automatic or not. We got font style and font size. We got wallpaper option, the sleep option, daydream, and screen color mode that switches to this app right here called Splendid. You can tweak the color temperature. As I said before, it's a bit on the cold side in the default mode. There is also the balanced screen color mode, blue light filter if you're planning to reduce eye fatigue with a meter here, and then the vivid mode that allows you to play with the color temperature in a different mode apparently, and customized with an option for hue and saturation. In the end you should stay with balanced even if the colors are a bit cold. There's also something called blur free motion. I keep it disabled because the effects are quite strong and there's a bit of cinematic motion blur involved. You get the high, middle and low and disabled functionality available here. Okay, other than that I have to say that overall the screen is reasonable in spite of the lower brightness. I did a bit of gaming on it and a bit of video playback. I didn't feel the influence of the brightness. However, if you plan on using it in full sunlight, you'll certainly feel some problems because it's illegible in strong sunlight. Now as far as the camera goes, 8 megapixel at the back, 5 megapixel at the front, Pixel Master technology, f2.0 aperture, and the 5 megapixel camera here is suited for selfies thanks to an 85-degree angle available for your wide selfies. You can also take a 140-degree panoramic selfie apparently. So the camera opens like this, and once again, if you've ever seen in your life a Zen phone device or a recent ASUS tablet, you'll feel right at home in this interface. As you can see, the auto mode is trigger happy and it's feeling the situation pretty fast. And now let's see the options available here. We got a typical white balance, ISO, exposure, optimization, camera resolution. It can be 8 megapixels in 4:3, 6 megapixels in 16:9 or lower values, anti-shake, image quality, fine or standard, timestamp, touch shutter, self-timer, burst, focus mode, smart autofocus, continuous autofocus or infinity, touch auto exposure, and then come the video options. We got white balance, exposure mode, video quality, can be full HD, HD or TV, video stabilization, which I recommend you not to use it because it deteriorates the image seriously, video preference, quality or performance, go with quality usually, and then the other options related to guidelines, burst shots, anti-flicker and all that. So those are the options you can play with here, and then we go to the modes. As usual, ASUS has implemented a ton of modes in spite of this only being a tablet. We got auto, we got HDR, we got beautification with various settings for your face, your eyes, your skin softening, and even some lipstick to apply apparently. Okay, super resolution is basically using interpolation. It takes 4 photos, melds them together into a high resolution shot. There's a low light feature, night feature, depth of field, effect, selfie, GIF animation, panorama, miniature, time rewind, smart remove, all smiles, slow motion, which we actually tested, and time lapse, which is apparently a new feature. Okay, so those are all the options we get to play with here, and if you press this button over here, you'll get to the front camera, and here you can see that we got those selfie features that I mentioned before, and you see the selfie panorama option available here, and then we get back to the regular shot. I experienced when using this camera a pretty fast focus and a tendency to oversaturate images, fluid zoom, as you can see for yourself, and if you keep the screen pressed, you get autofocus, auto white balance, and auto exposure locked, and you can play with that brightness slider pretty niftily. Okay, so that's about it. Let's actually take a shot with a pretty reasonable speed for a tablet, and then let's see the result of our shot. This is it. I have to say that the quality is quite good once again for a tablet. And now it's time to analyze the gallery of shots we've taken. Obviously we haven't taken a huge amount, it's a tablet after all, but we did test it, and here we go. It's a gallery taken at the end of September, and I have to say from the start that the colors are quite good, a bit of overexposure, images are crisp, and I find this to be almost equal to the Nokia N1 and the Xiaomi Mi Pad, but below the iPad mini Retina or the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4. It certainly has more options than them, that's for sure. It was a very cloudy day of September, and we did register some good close-ups and nice colors, as you can see here on this gloomy day. Nice close-ups, as I said, when it comes to flowers being photographed close by, the camera handles it well. When we go indoors, you'll see that the shots become grainy and blurry, and considering the fact that we don't have a flash, I would have to say these are reasonable as well, in spite of being grainy. It's a tablet after all. Okay, so we also did videos, but they're not very impressive. They have some audio echo problems and some exposure problems, violent exposure changes. Full HD, MP4, 30 frames per second, a sudden exposure change, decent clarity but a bit shaky, and you just heard that car with a pretty big echo. Okay, and then we got this video right here that looks not so good. It's a stabilized video in 720p and it's quite blurry and burnt. Then we got this video that's certainly an improvement. Pretty good clarity, I have to say. 15 mega per second bitrate, 30 frames per second. Good colors and even a decent level of stabilization in spite of the option being deactivated. We even played with slow-mo with pretty good results. So that's slow-mo for you, looking quite nice. Overall, it's reasonable for a tablet, but I've seen better on the iPad mini series. Of course, you can do a bit of editing by pressing this button here. If you have a selfie, for example, you can soften the skin, brighten the eyes, make the eyes bigger, or if it's a regular shot, we got the regular options like a bunch of filters, frames, crop, straighten, rotate, mirror or draw, and other functions like sharpness, hue, saturation, edges, and all that. Okay, we're totally done with this chapter now, and I'm going to go to the performance and temperature area. After playing the game Riptide GP2 for 15 minutes, we reached a temperature of 35 degrees Celsius, which means the tablet is not overheating, and that's always good news. Let's switch back to portrait for a minute here and access the browser. And while you're typing for something, you can see trending searches, which is quite cool. We're loading Tablet-News.com, loaded pretty fast in this theme interface. Once again, loaded fast scrolling, checking our website up in landscape as well. And now let's talk about the keyboard. As you can see, we got a numeric row, we got voice input, and we even have swipe. So if I want to write hello fast, that's actually very fast. Okay, so I'm impressed with the keyboard, I'm impressed with the browser, pretty good speed, and now it's time for the benchmarks. In my benchmark tests, I decided to compare the ASUS ZenPad S 8.0 with the Nokia N1, Xiaomi Mi Pad, iPad mini 2, and the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4, all of them tested by us over the past year or so. Okay, so in quadrant, here we go, we scored in quadrant 22,098 points. We were below the Nokia N1 that had 22,271, and at least we beat the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4 that registered 19,510 points. In Antutu, our score was 40,349, lower than the Nokia N1's 47,382, but at least we beat the Xiaomi Mi Pad with its 39,353, and we also beat the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4 and its 32,000 points. In Nenamark, the score was 60 frames per second, 0.1 frames higher than the Nokia N1, 0.4 higher than the Xiaomi Mi Pad, and 1 frame higher than the Tab S 8.4. Velamo is also here with the HTML5 test with a score of 2894, below the Nokia N1's 3127, below the Xiaomi Mi Pad 2977, and above the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4 2463 points. In 3D Mark, in the Ice Storm Unlimited test, we scored 12,909 points, below the Nokia N1's 20,282, and also below the Xiaomi Mi Pad 25,321, plus below the iPad Mini 2's 14,629, and finally even a bit below the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4's 13,346. GFX is also in the house, achieving 24 frames per second in the 1080p TRX off-screen test, while the Nokia N1 scores 30, the Xiaomi Mi Pad 47.7, iPad Mini 2 26, and the Galaxy Tab S 8.4 scores 21.8 frames per second. Next up we've got Geekbench 3, and in Geekbench 3 we scored 927 points in the single core test and 2842 in the multi-core test on the ZenPad S 8.0, while the Nokia N1 scored 915 over 2872. The iPad Mini 2 scored 1347 over 2525 in this test, and the Galaxy Tab S 8.4 scored 921 over 2739. We also have a speed test here, and speed test has to do with the connectivity speed on Wi-Fi, and here we got 24 megabits in download and 29 in upload, while the Nokia N1 had 17 and 23, the Xiaomi Mi Pad 22 and 6, and the iPad Mini 2 recorded 19 megabits in download. Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4 had 29 and 27. Browser Mark is here as well, and here we scored 1851 points, while the Nokia N1 had 1820 and the iPad Mini Retina 3478. Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4 had 1600 points. Next up is SunSpider, where the lower is the better. Our tablet had 805, Nokia N1 809, Xiaomi Mi Pad 594, and the iPad Mini Retina 425. And finally, there is Base Mark X with a score of 16,924, while the Nokia N1 has 19,502 and the Xiaomi Mi Pad 24,400 points. iPad Mini Retina scored 26,000 points here. Just for the sake of mentioning more details, this was a battle between the Intel Atom Z3580 plus 4GB of RAM versus the Intel Atom Z3580 again plus 2GB of RAM versus the Tegra K1 and 2GB of RAM, and versus the octa-core Exynos 5420 and 3GB of RAM, finally versus the Apple A7 and 1GB of RAM. Sadly, this tablet only wins 1 out of the 11 benchmarks, and strangely the Nokia N1 gets higher scores with the same CPU, same display, and twice as little RAM as this tablet. Meanwhile, we beat the Samsung Galaxy Tab S 8.4 in 8 out of 11 tests. The ASUS ZenPad S 8.0 does not suffer from lag, as you can well see. It runs a slightly customized Lollipop and can deal with many apps at the same time thanks to the large quantity of RAM. We're also running games with 3D graphics quite fine, like is the case with Riptide GP2 that we played and had a blast with. Okay, so quick to access, nice lighting effects, nice texture of water, good controls, and excellent clarity. a crisp display. While I was complaining before about the brightness, when you're actually playing games or watching video, you won't be disappointed by the screen, at least indoors. And since I mentioned the screen, I must do a very quick mea culpa. Why? Because the pixels we mentioned before, this is not a pentile matrix, it's actually an RGB stripe setup, so sorry for the earlier mention. It's time to talk about the software, and the software here is Android 5.0 Lollipop with the latest Zen UI applied on top. If you've seen an ASUS ZenPhone handset for the past year or an ASUS tablet for the past year, you'll know what to expect here with some customization. We got these unique widgets, we got the what's next and do it later concept that I'm going to cover over the next minutes. The Zen UI from ASUS is colorful, it has its unique iconography, it's flat and material designed, and it has much more widget variation than its rivals. Once you keep the screen pressed, you can trigger the apps and widgets area, and as you can see, an impressive quantity of widgets, many of them unique to ASUS, good looking and useful. In the same customization area, you can edit the pages, add more, make one the main one, and tweak the wallpapers, mess around with the icon packs in case you have more installed. Then we got the scrolling effects, quite a few of them actually, and then you can lock apps with passwords. We also have preferences, and this is quite an ample area with layouts. You have the 2-layer mode or the 1-layer mode where you eliminate the app drawer, for example, the all apps button, scrollable wallpaper, transparent status bar, grid size, icon packs, select font and other things like that. And then we got the system settings that I'm going to cover a bit later on. And finally the more area with the launcher fonts, encourage us, feedback and help. If you pinch the screen, you'll have access to the page management that you saw before. Once again, I'm going to highlight these widgets that are not only good looking but also quite useful. Other than that, you can go to the recents area where you can find the classic carousel with several options, like for example you can see the running services, all apps or movable apps. Here you can also close down all of them or pin an app to the screen if you want to. In the drop down area you have a two-pronged approach, so first swipe and second swipe. First swipe shows you notifications, the second one the quick settings that we're familiar with. And we got boost, calculator, auto star manager, audio wizard, location and a few connectivity tabs, plus the brightness slider. Now we enter the settings area where we find the usual options like those connectivity related, data usage. There's also the more area, display and Zen motion. Zen motion includes touch gestures, the usual like double tap to wake up, draw W to launch the web browser, so something like this started the web browser for me, and that was only an example of the gestures you can use on this slate. Okay, so Zen motion, we go here again, and you can view motion gestures like shaking twice an app to take a screenshot or flipping the device over. Then we got Sunday notification, a do not disturb feature with rules and exceptions. Let's go to the settings again. Storage apps, Z stylus, so if you have that accessory, there are options for it here, like hovering above content to see previews. And then we got users, we can add one more and input the password for him or her, and ASUS customized settings like taking a screenshot by holding the recent app keys pressed, screenshot file format, app installation settings, and enabling the ASUS cover. We missed a few settings here. Location, lock screen, there is an easy mode for the elderly and children, I guess. Lock screen options, and security is also here. You can encrypt the tablet if you want to, install from SD card. We got accounts, language and input, date and time accessibility, and Zen UI app updates. You can update each of the standard ASUS apps one by one if need be. Okay, so those are the options we're playing with here, and now it's time to view the huge pre-installed apps list. There is a bit of bloatware here, there's a ton of options, and Zen UI is becoming this new old TouchWiz, so to say, but without a lag. An interesting thing here is that the tablet tends to set your apps into folders. It automatically felt these were games, automatically realized these are photography apps, and so forth. If you download the music app, it puts it in the music area, and so on. And it also recommends a cleanup every once in a while and a boost by cleaning your RAM or storage. Okay, so let's go to the actual list of apps. Be prepared, it's huge. We got Clean Master, Amazon Kindle, Free Games, TripAdvisor. We got Contacts, Email, and Omelette Chat. The full Google suite with Google, Chrome, Gmail, Maps, YouTube, Drive, Play Music, Hangouts, Photos, Google+, Docs, Sheets, and Slides. And let's see Maps, because we do have a GPS here after all. You can see the buildings in 3D, no problem. Okay, then we got Photography with Camera, Gallery, and Photo Collage, which is going to create some nifty effects on your images once applied. Let's create a rainbow here, for example. So choose this photo, tap next, and now we have a rainbow. Of course, you can apply a ton of other options and create an actual collage. Then we got Productivity with Browser, Calculator, Calendar, which is not the stock app as far as I can see, or it's the stock one but a bit customized since we have the floating interface thingy. Then we got the Do It Later, which is a concept unique to ASUS. Basically, you get Do It Later buttons in the email and in the browser, web browser, and you add certain things that you cannot do right now, so you can do them later. Read the web page later, read an email later, call someone later. Everything can be put on hold and added to this list here. It's basically like, let's say, a calendar for the following hours. Share Link allows you to share files quickly with another Android device or PC. What's next is your timeline. Here you can see everything you have planned for the next period. So basically you can see birthdays, presentations, rehearsals, VIP contacts, and things to do over the next days, including weather and recommendations. Then we got web storage and Dropbox. Then comes the huge folder of tools. ASUS Support, Audio Wizard, Auto Start Manager, which allows you to select the apps that are allowed to auto start or not. Then we got Backup, Clock, File Manager, Mirror, PC Link, which as far as I know can mirror your screen to your computer. Canceling for now. And then Power Saver, Quick Memo, the basic memo taking application. A Remote Link, allowing you to turn your device into a PC remote. Setup Wizard, Sound Recorder, Splendid, Super Note. It's basically an alternative to the Samsung S Note from the Note devices. A lot of stuff to use here, a lot of pens and options to play with. You can draw, you can write, and there's an impressive amount of features here. Strokes of pen, using the keyboard, drawing and inputting all sorts of things, and even creating something like this, a meeting record, and other things like that. Actually, it's becoming more useful than the S Note from Samsung that has been a bit stripped of features over the past, let's say, year. Okay, there's system update, data transfer, Google settings, Play Store, settings, voice search, and more. We got a kids mode here, which is actually quite cute. This is the setup I did. These are the apps that are available to the little one. And then you can enter your PIN and deselect some of the features or exit it like this. The little one is locked by the PIN and can only access those apps and that cute background. Live Water is a wallpaper, a floating wallpaper, and Mini Movie lets you create a new video with some cool effects. Select a few of them, then edit, add music, add effects, and create a theme like birthday, kids, romance, life, or memory. We've seen this before on other devices. Okay, we got music, my ASUS, weather, Zen Circle, Zenio, Street View, and finally games and play games. Those are all the apps pre-installed on the tablet. An annoying aspect about these apps is the fact that you'll spend many minutes seeing them updated, just like I did when I first got the tablet. So once you buy the slate, you'll spend 1 or 2 hours simply with updates because they have a ton of apps. It's time for the verdict related to the ASUS ZenPad S 8.0. Now let's go to the pros first. It's a slim and light tablet that you'll be happy to use with a single hand and wear with you in your purse or bag. Slim, light, comfy and elegant, it has good acoustics. In spite of what the Decibel Meter shows, I'm happy with those 2 front speakers. It takes decent pictures for a tablet and offers good performance in games and productivity with a huge amount of options related to your work and fun. Now on the cons side, we got an underwhelming battery and display that becomes illegible in the sun, low brightness, low benchmarks, and I compared the benchmark to a tablet that has the exact same specs but less RAM, and they were lower, a bunch of bloatware, quite a bit of bloatware, and too many options for the average user. Also, it feels a bit fragile because of the quantity of plastic used here, especially the edges feel like they're going to be dinged at some point. The colors are a bit on the cold side, and the video capture is underwhelming compared to the photo capture. This tablet, the ASUS ZenPad S 8.0, suffers a bit from the Apple syndrome. It has been introduced with too many fancy names. We got Pixel Master, we got ASUS True Vivid, we got ASUS TTS HD, we got Sonic Master, we got True to Life, we got Blue Light Filter, and hundreds of features and apps that users may find confusing. Sometimes simpler is better. ASUS has used too many fancy names for a tablet that's at its core good and appealing and sexy and comfy, but with all those names you can get lost, and when you realize that the screen isn't that bright, you'll be let down by the amount of technology invested into it. And also there is a crowded Zen UI with a huge amount of options that users may find again confusing, when in the end the experience of Android should be simple. Overall, this is not a better tablet than the Nokia N1. It's better than the Nexus 9, but not better than the iPad mini Retina, iPad mini 3 or iPad mini 4. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a 9 for design, an 8.5 for the hardware. I'm being a bit harsh here because the display, battery and theoretically the audio have been a letdown, and an 8.7 for OS and UI. That's a bit chaotic in my book. The final grade is 8.73 out of 10. It's a tablet that's good for gaming, for video watching, for a bit of work using Supernote, and if you have the accessories like a keyboard and a stylus, it's certainly excellent to carry around for your student activity. So overall, it's a very good tablet, but because of the display, battery and the plastic areas, it gets down to 8.73 out of 10 from Tablet-News.com. Bye bye!